Blessing. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today we're in 2 Kings chapter 16, 2 Chronicles chapter 28, and Isaiah chapters 7 and 8. Neat read today. 2 Chronicles. When we get into that, it was interesting to see Israel and Judah going into battle. Now, remember, these are the 12 tribes of Israel, but they're fighting each other like they're enemy nations, and so much so that Israel got the upper hand on Judah. They killed 120,000 soldiers, and then they carried off 200,000 women and children to take as slaves. That's pretty brutal. I mean, they didn't just go in and defeat them. They were very harsh and very violent and vindictive with what they did. And so much so that Israel, which usually their leaders, and we talked about the last couple of days, their leaders, they're just terrible. They never had a good king. He was always evil and always followed in the ways of Jeroboam. But here, it's almost like for the first time, the leaders of Israel actually do something right. They knew that this battle or this war with Judah was carried out with over-the-top violence and vengeance. And leaders even come out and tell the soldiers as they're coming back home, you got to let those 200,000 people go back. You've gone too far. And they listen to them. It just 28:15 was just, again, the first time I think I've seen Israel do something right in many weeks, if not the first time that in our readings I've seen that. I didn't go back and research it, but just I can't remember another time where Israel overtly did something good. But wait a second, hold off. Two more verses down in verse 17, we see that the soldiers regret doing good. Now, I don't know about you, but I have had times in my life where I have regretted something that I did, and it was always something bad or something I should not have said, and I've had regrets. I don't remember the last time I regretted doing something good. Change a tire. Man, I sure wish I hadn't changed that person's tire, or just whatever the case may be. Israel regretted doing good, and they turned around and went back to Judah and recaptured some of the slaves and brought them back to Israel. Just a terrible thing. Judah is in a bad spot. They've been defeated, and not only defeated, but Israel really kind of rubbed their nose in it and hurt Judah pretty good, to the point that even the Philistines just kick Judah while they're down. They decide, hey man, these guys are defenseless. Let's go raid their southern the southern part of their country and the towns and the villages. And so the Philistines came in and started reaping destruction on Judah. We learn that before all this started, I should have started with this. Judah had probably one of the first bad/evil kings it had had in a while. And God was upset with this king, so much so that he sent all this calamity on Judah to discipline Judah and to make a point. And he did. This was discipline from the father. The king dies, and his son, who is named Hezekiah, takes over in chapter 28, verse 27. And I think you'll see as we go along over the next couple of days, Hezekiah is one of the coolest kings Israel had. And we know Israel's had cool kings. I mean, I would put David at the top. I would put Solomon right underneath him, even though Solomon did not finish well. But then Hezekiah, for me, would be third in that list of good kings for Israel. And I'm really excited to get into his story. The last read was out of Isaiah, and just like the other day when we had the takeaway out of Isaiah that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, that prophecy, and how cool that was just to be inserted in there, Isaiah does it again. In chapter 7, verse 14, he asks the king, do you want me to give you a sign? I mean, just offers it up, and the king's like, nah. I don't think I really need a sign from God. And Isaiah was like, well, I'm going to tell you anyway. And so in verse 14, he tells the prophecy that, he's told us that Jesus will be born in Bethlehem, that Jesus is going to be a shepherd of his people. And then here he says he will be born of a virgin and his name will be Emmanuel. Now, that's just 4 prophecies that Jesus fulfills. And the statistics for one person fulfilling those 4 prophecies is unbelievable. But there will continue to be prophecies that Jesus will fulfill to make to the point where you can't disprove that he's the Christ. Get tangled up in my words here. I can't think of the word I actually want to say. But anyway, where Jesus is named Emmanuel, if you get time, look at Matthew chapter 1, verses 21 through 23. Mary's told to name him Jesus because he will save his people from their sins. And then she's told to name him Emmanuel, for he will save his people. Just really cool stories. Tomorrow we're going to be in Isaiah chapters 9 through 12. So read up tonight. Come back tomorrow and let's see what kind of law enforcement takeaways we can get from it. In the meantime, be safe.